Alright, there we go. We're back! We're back! Melina heard I was talking shit. What were you saying, young Tarnish? It's like, no, Melina, you are truly the greatest queen. Yes, you should have replaced your mom. Totally. Let me turn this down slightly. I swear, chat. My life is a comedy. That said, I do hate how absolutely asinine the Ethernet's been lately. It's like, why do I have an Ethernet connection if you're gonna be as inconsistent as a Wi-Fi at this point? Ay. Oh, you know what? Let me send it on, let me send the link also on, community for you guys. Reminder, if you're ever having trouble, please join the Discord. Link can be found in the description. Just go to the website, check the contact page, you'll find it there. That way you can always keep up with the announcements and stuff in case you're ever having trouble, like, seeing it when, you know, YouTube does its things. You know, YouTube, a lot of times people don't see it until, like, 30 minutes or an hour later, which I don't know why. Why do people subscribe to me if not to get the messages right away? Like, oh. YouTube be YouTube, right? I'm pretty sure I just used this community post just to tell you when the Ethernet's being the Ethernet, you know? Melina is literally the hottest girl. Yep. There, we don't slander any glomide queens in this chat. They're queens here. Totally not thoughts. Oops. Also, I'm the true Loki and Shadowlot's the best character. Oh, you're still alive. Okay. Oh, no, you're a new one, I think. Right? I hope so. Oh, that was disgusting. I saw the post and had to do it. There's something I want here, right? Yeah, these are all the statues we already have shots of. I don't see any trees here. Yeah, the biggest problem with this, and connecting it to Loran, is, obviously it's more volcanic than desert here. Right? It's dry, I suppose, in a certain sense, with the way the trees look and shit, but definitely not, like, the greatest example we have. We still have the same grass we see in Yarnum and stuff, right? Alright, so what were we talking about again? Oh, right. How Melina is such wasted potential, am I right? DS2 was the game I learned the gameplay logic, so it has a special place in my heart. It's okay. You know, some people have a special place in their heart for junk food as well, even as it clogs their arteries. Understandable, you know? You ever wonder what the devs were intending when they made these giant pole things with, like, flora on the end? Were they, like, these are, like, totem poles of some sort? Are they supposed to... Are they supposed to be some sort of, like, funerary practice? Like, what? What compelled them to make these random poles to stick into the ground in this graveyard area in a volcanic formation rock thing? Now, sometimes I feel like I would have a very interesting interview with Miyazaki, should I ever get the chance. Oh, you got these flowers here too, right? Oh. Damn. I can't get a full shot of that tree. Unless... not ideal. Okay, what if I just hide the character behind something without actually... Like, can I get away with that? Like, can I get away from doing something like this? Oh my god, I might actually be able to do this. Oh god, chat, what is my life? Alright, I might be able to finagle my way around this. If I... One? I'm sorry, Top Hat, you gotta go. Very close. Are you gonna play Graceborn, Bloodborne, Elden Ring mod? Oh, as in it tries to put all of Bloodborne into Elden Ring, or like create like a Bloodborne 2 out of it? I generally avoid the modded stuff because I legit have never really cared for it, right? Like, it's the same reason I try to avoid like Souls-like games and stuff, because the few that I've played, they don't really click with me. I don't want to play a knockoff. I want to play the genuine article, you know? I don't know. You never know. Maybe. Maybe this one will be different. People are still saying Mesmer has something to do with those fire monk things the giants are impaled on. I don't see it. Yeah, no. Like, I do not know. The only thing that they have in common is both involve thorns, but people... It's been established now that the thorns that they are impaled upon come from the Shadow Tree. Or at the very least, the Shadow Tree is taking it from the same source as the Erd Tree. Because, you know, they're the same thing. They're reflections of each other. So the Shadow Tree has the quote-unquote impenetrable thorns that reject all things. You have to understand, impenetrable in the Japanese is actually saying rejection. So they're really like, you know, thorns of rejection or rejection thorns. And yeah, of course, because they reject all things, you know, that's a big, there's an entire, incantation you get from the two fingers that basically alludes to that, right? Tarnish, learn to reject all, right? Because it's effective against, like, everything or something. I forget what, I think it's some sort of, like, magic barrier or something or whatever. But anyway, point is that, like, yeah, it's not connected to Mesmer specifically. And if the idea is, well, it impales, so therefore, maybe Mesmer is the one that did the impaling. Did we ever consider that maybe, you know, just maybe, Marika did the impaling, and then she taught Mesmer to also do the impaling, because that was the standard practice of the Erd Tree kingdom for capital punishment at that time, and maybe even now, we just don't see it, because, you know, who's doing such big shit as the Giants were threatening the destruction of the Erd Tree, right? Not saying they were trying to do that, just saying that, you know, Marika's, you know how Marika gets. Liza P gets level design from Dark Souls, right? Yeah, but I just wasn't... The combat didn't grab me. I wasn't enthused. There we go. There's the bridge and everything. Meg, can you imagine actually going to the Nightmare of Mensis and seeing that during this daytime lighting? You know, now that I think about it, that'd be kind of crazy. Also, where the hell is this? Where's the sun? I just realized there's no sun here. It's light for no reason. Like, there should be a sun right there behind the... somewhere behind the nightmare there. You know, there's a moon that'll be there when it's nighttime, that's for sure. America and Gwyn are both doing a marathon on worst parent competition. Yeah, when people ask me who I think is worse, I think it's so hard to say because you have to get into the nuance of how these characters personally view their children. Because both of them are willing to use children to certain ends, but they also show clear that they do have some degree of affection and love for at least some of their children, right? Maybe some more than others, right? So it's like, you know, how much are they just like, you know, they're just a parent, right? Like, they're not like a particularly great parent, they're not a particularly bad parent, you know, they're just a parent, right? But they're really shitty people. Which I think is the more important bit. I just realized this man uses messengers to send us a note, huh? Alright, send us down, baby. Besides England, the sun is hard to find. Man, this music, this background music really, really changes the tone of this scene, huh? Alright. Glad elixirs, whatever will I do, chat? Oh. Ow. Alright, these guys are tankier than I remember. Similar sharp edges and stuff to what we see elsewhere. I killed the NPC enemies here yet? I don't remember. No idea. More Bloodborne, heck yeah. Hey, Victor Gaming, you came just in time to see the second stream today of this. Congrats, you didn't come too early. I do find it hilarious that all of America's children end up being an existential middle finger at either Radigan or America. Some of them do end up being born normal and then something happens. Yeah, yeah, because she's supposed to have all these children, and yet a lot of them end up dead. Either as the Godskins, or as we see with, later with, the first dead demigod or whatever, right? With our soulless friend. They end up soulless, so it's like, yeah. Like, who knows how many normal children America has, but clearly it's not the important ones, right? They just die. Oh, I wasn't expecting that to actually work. If I'm being honest. Thank you, buddy. Really appreciate you. Rykard was normal, then he pulled the serpent thing. I mean, Ronnie, I guess you could also say was pretty normal, right? Then she decided she wanted to be a puppet. She wanted to be somebody's sex doll, I guess. Listen, girl can have her fetishes, right? Radon was a warmonger. Yeah, but he was pretty normal otherwise, right? I guess. I don't know. He looks really fugly, right? And there's the weird thing that I always have is there's talk. I think Miyazaki mentions it even, but there's this there's this talk about the idea that the There's this talk about how, like, the Great Runes are corrupting or something to that extent. I think Miyazaki mentioned some pre-release interviews, but you don't really see it. Like, you really don't. The best you can get is that Radon looks a little weird, but, like, you can't tell, is that because of everything that's happened in Caelid, or, like, in the Rod and all that shit? Is that because of his Great Rune? Like, they really don't elaborate on that, I think, in any meaningful degree. It's kind of just, like, thrown out there about, like, oh yeah, it does stuff, apparently. But it's like, none of the characters seem to act in any way that's inconsistent than how they would have acted if there wasn't a corrupting influence of the Great Rune. Like, all of them took the Great Rune, presumably, because they wanted a slice of that pie. Though, I mean, obviously, we know that's not the case with a lot of them. They were just kind of feigning or acting or whatever. Honestly, it makes the whole Great Rune scenario seem really weird in retrospect. It seems like, who are the ones that legitimately were wanting to compete for the title of Elden Lord? Godefroy / Godric, right? Radon. Trying to think if there's anything else there. Yeah, I think that might have been it. I guess Morgott and Moog too, I guess. But they're not even on the council thing. Like, Moog's like this big secret. Morgott's like, well, I'm never getting accepted. He's just there to help mediate, essentially. And they already was normal size, getting slapped by Morgott, I think. I don't know how much bigger he is, relative to the Morgott thing, because isn't his model in the DLC smaller, right? I said it before, that could just be because he's, like, using the mode body, but I haven't seen anybody do any comparisons, so I don't have no idea for sure. Could be all coincidental. We've only seen the survivors of the war. If you talk about the demigods and stuff, then yeah. America has tons more demigods. Again, most of them, like I was talking about earlier, they're gone. Now, maybe there's more in the lore we don't know about. They're off doing God knows what, but it's not going to be here. I'll be honest, I really think Elden Ring's the one game that Miyazaki should just release Martin's original documents with the backstory and stuff after whatever period he feels is appropriate. Maybe they're planning to do like another Elden Ring or something, an Elden Ring 2 that'll, you know, cover more of the stuff in Martin's world building texts. But right now, for me, it really feels like there's a lot of ideas that might just be half-baked and don't properly make it into the base game. Again, I could be wrong, and we're gonna see it when if I ever do a formal analysis and stuff. But stuff like the Great Runes really makes me wonder if, like, a lot of the plot points we have were not in Martin's notes, but they're based on ideas and stuff, and so you can kind of come up with a logic for why characters are doing some of the shit they're doing, even though, like, in retrospect, it kind of seems a little silly. Like, the only reason I can imagine now for, like, Ronnie, Rykard, Miquella, Melina, all of them to be taking Great Runes and getting involved in this whole alliance shtick is purely in order to keep other characters like Radon and Godric / Godefroy from taking the throne. I guess you could also theoretically say maybe Rykard, because the others wouldn't know about Rykard or Ronnie's positions either, right? So you have Rykard, right? I don't know, it just feels very weird. It feels like all this plan where everybody's doing something in order to stop other people potentially for doing it, even though the other people aren't interested in doing that thing either. It's like only like 2 guys out of the whole group. Not a writing complaint, mind you, just saying it's a bit weird how it's conveyed and how characters act in retrospect. Yeah, the mausoleums are for the soulless demigods. And I was open to the idea because when you're looking at the text, it doesn't explicitly clarify that the soulless demigods is plural, right? So I was open to the idea of some people who were trying to interpret it as maybe one, but yeah, once you see that text that tells you, oh, would you look at this corpse? And it's like the same with the other mausoleums. It's like, okay, this is like 100% like an actual corpse of like a separate demigod that's been like, you know, beheaded and shit, but like does its thing. You think they're sick of Elden Ring in particular? Maybe they're not going to get back to it right away, but I can't imagine that with how much money it's made them, that they aren't at least being like, okay, that's a reliable moneymaker if we ever want to return to it, right? So if you want to be completely cynical, right? And again, I think from a creative perspective, I would agree with you. I don't think Elden Ring lends itself to a sequel in the same vein that Dark Souls did, even though I also think that Dark Souls should have never had sequels. I've gone on record about saying that, right? I think that it's definitely a lot tougher to come up with a premise for an Elden Ring 2 than it would be for a Dark Souls 2. I think that's why Miyazaki's pushing so hard on the idea of, like, Elden Ring getting, like, a film or a TV show or something, right? And handing it off to other people. Because I think he really kind of wants that lore stuff to not take up his work as an auteur when there's so many other projects and things that he wants both FromSoft as a company and him personally to work on, right? So I personally struggle to imagine I struggle to imagine a scenario where Miyazaki is not going to have something come out with Elden Ring, even if it's not a game. Now the question is, how much will Miyazaki be involved in sharing the necessary lore information to any showrunner or, you know, film producer? I don't know. He's been very hands-off with stuff like comics and things, basically them writing whatever fan fiction they want. For the worst, I would say, though some of the shit they come out with is very hilarious. It's funny to me that the Elden Ring manga is perhaps the best piece of From Software comic media we've ever gotten. Elden Ring anime by Trigger would be cool. Or by the Castlevania anime studio. Was that an actual Japanese studio who worked on Castlevania? I'm actually not aware. I am not in the loop there. Oh yeah, I'm not going back there, huh? DLC felt to me like the Painting World DS1 because of the disconnect from the main game. Well, apparently it's part of the lore, as far as I can tell from what Miyazaki's talked about it. So this was something that was in Martin's notes, or at least at least as a premise. The question I have is how much of the DLC's, like, you know, size, because I've talked about it before, it doesn't work as a one-to-one size if people try to, like, overlap it or connect the maps from, like, the base game and the DLC, and it just doesn't work. There's so many problems when you get into the details of those things, trying to do it that way. You have to shrink down the Realm of Shadow to make it work that way. I'm curious how much of it was, like, a cut concept that the developers, had in mind, but they never got around to doing it because they had so much to work with the base game and there was no way to really fit it. And then they ended up, because it was a full-on DLC and there was going to be such a big development time, they ended up making the map so much bigger than it would realistically be versus the base game, right? So instead of it being, like, you know, this relatively decent but, you know, somewhat small, like, zone area type thing where you could you can get all the important lore bits, and it would be this very condensed thing like we have in the base game with a lot of its areas. And that being this big, massive expanse, which is fun to explore, but it's kind of empty, a little bit more dead, compared to the base game in terms of, like, you know, content, exploration, rewards, things of that nature. I don't know. Feel free to disagree with me, chat, but it really does kind of feel, to me at least, like, a lot of that stuff just feels like, I don't know, they felt like they had to make it bigger because of the long wait time and stuff, right? Because it was going to be, had to be this separate DLC. It makes me feel like they may have expanded the scope even though they didn't have the content, to justify it, right? Which probably also contributed to why we see, so much, like, little, like, kind of almost meaningless, like, add-ons to, like, the lore with, like, you know, Godwin's Prince Knights. Like, oh, good! He's got personal knights who then converted. I mean, at least we got, like, a little bit of lore smoothing out the timeline from Fortis Sax and Godwin to the Land Sax, you know, and the Ancient Dragon Cult there. But it's, like, for the most part, it's, like, kind of like, oh, okay. We're just adding the fact that Godwin had personal knights who converted after he turned into Death Prince and then decided they would fuck off to find more of his faces. Should've gone to Stormvale, idiots. I hope I'm not sounding too negative, by the way, because I really do love Elden Ring and the DLC and stuff like that, but, again, just sort of mouthing off since it's been a while since I've actually talked about what my thoughts on the DLC's story content is. I really don't have, big issues or whatever with what we got. It's just like, it is what it is, right? I think some of it's pretty cool. You know what would have made it cooler, though? If we had more Banished Knights. That's how you get me to be obsessed with the DLC, that's for sure. Just put more Banished Knights in it. Is there anything that changes in the main game after the DLC? In terms of, like, lore, if we're talking about, like, retcons and stuff, that's really hard to judge with From Software games, because there's always the argument that whatever you determined about the base game that has been disproven in the DLC isn't a flaw, isn't a retcon, it's just that you did the incorrect analysis based on either not reading the evidence right or having incomplete evidence to work with and sort of trying to force an assumption there that you couldn't logically come to that conclusion for, right? Like, say, America's Homeland. I originally had a theory that basically proposed the idea that if we had to find a homeland for America, let's go to the nameless Eternal City. Like, that would be the best place. You know, it's right where the Erd Tree is, right? You got Newman there with the Nox and stuff like that. Like, that would be the best candidate if you had to tell me where would America have come from so that she just, you know, doesn't appear out of nowhere, right? Then we get the DLC, and it's like, oh no, this village is her homeland. It's like, oh, okay. There's no way anyone could have possibly been like, oh, no, she probably just came from some random village that we haven't been able to go to or whatever yet. It's like, we have the whole lands between. Well, as we learned with the DLC, no, we don't. We have an entire separate landmass that was cut off from the lands between. It's like, there's no way anyone could have predicted that and the implications of how that would affect analysis and stuff like that, right? Like, you would have to, like, go into, like, every game from now on and be like, you know, unless there's some crazy hidden landmass, you know, we can't really say if this character's actually from here, right? Like, I'm not gonna hold it against the game and be like, oh, no, they're retconning things. Like, maybe there was, again, if the Realm of Shadow was always a thing in the lore, and America's Village was always intended to come from there, yeah, sure, I can buy that or whatever. Like, it's not a big deal either way. And if it's some stuff where it's like, oh, we had cut content that said this thing, but then, like, these cut items, like, say, like, the leather set stuff and the things that are connected to the Highland Warriors. That was stuff that we had cut content for, but now it's different in the base game, and now they focus on the bear thing. Well, if you look at some stuff in the base game, it looks like the bear thing may have been more intentional than we might have originally realized or whatever. They just didn't harp on it to any significant degree. But it's obvious that they changed at least the items in the context for what those items lore would be. Sure. But it was never in the base game anyway, so it's cut content, so it's not really a retcon, right? It's just something like they were throwing around ideas for stuff, and then they repurposed that stuff with new ideas that are able to still be applicable based on the original design intent, right? The idea of being like, okay, instead of it connecting it to the Badlands, and the idea that you have these warriors of the Highlands connected to Godfrey that way, let's instead make it where now we connect it directly to Godfrey's past instead of his future, right? It did feel like it was just stuff that they didn't get around to showcasing. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it feels like they really... they had, like, a few leftover things, and then they just made a map that was too big to really describe that, right? Like, you could have, like, taken the Realm of Shadow and maybe make it about, like, take the size of, like, the Nightmare of Mensis, the Nightmare Frontier, and I wouldn't say the lecture building, but I don't know, like Yahar Ghul, right? Because Yahar Ghul isn't that big, but it's like more sizable, right? It's a bit more hallways. Like, you could have probably had like those three areas put together, and you could have probably told the whole story of the Realm of Shadow, basically, across a map area of that big, right? You didn't need to make it this giant landmass or whatever, right? In terms of, like, wanting to fit it in with the base game and stuff, if you wanted to create, like, a, you know, a one-to-one accurate representation of the two maps inside the same game world space, and you then filled it with the same content that we got. I think you could have made it work for sure, right? And you maybe would have had to cut a few villages and stuff, right? But it would still, like, more or less feel about right in terms of density. Yeah, I cannot find any good angles on the fishing hamlet stuff from up here, unfortunately, so, yeah. Just gonna have to live with that. There we go. I enjoyed it until the end. That's all. Yeah, I agree with you, Xavier. I think outside the ending, it's a fine DLC. There's like nothing big to complain about. I should probably take pictures of these things since we get similar ones with the fishing hamlet and stuff, right? Oh my god! But I have my shadow in the way. Why is my shadow in the way? There's no sun. The timeline is big, so America can be connected to the Nox and the village. Yes, sure, but it's not like, you know, she came from the... It's pretty clear now that she, like, you know, she grew up and came from that small-time village. Maybe the village goes back to the Nameless Eternal City and the Nox and stuff. Sure, that's possible. I've also put forward now that we have these Rao Ancient Civ ruins and stuff, that maybe she's a descendant of the god there, and that god was Placky's god, and so she left over and for some reason settled in the Highlands area to create Rao or whatever as a civilization. That became the ancient Civ that we know today, and then it collapses, and then some of the descendants of her or whatever become the village there. I don't know, maybe that's the case, maybe not, but it's one of those things where it's like, it's not the theory I originally proposed, right? Because again, the theory I originally proposed was this idea of America coming from the Nameless Eternal City itself, right? Now, do I like the village revelation? Sure. It explains a few things, like questions about like why the Nox of the Nameless Eternal City, who have relations with the Sun Capital and stuff, end up not helping America, and she needs to get a separate army from Godfrey and stuff. Well, that now is a lot easier to explain when you have this idea that, okay, besides the fact that these Nameless Eternal City have relations with the Sun Capital that seem to have been more or less friendly, with a lot of like immigration going at least one way, and friendly relations and trade and stuff happening there. Well, now we also have to add on top of that the idea that what's it called? The village that America comes from has no connection to that Eternal City. It seems, at least no like current connection or whatever. No direct contact or anything like that. So I was like, okay, they had no relations with America before, and that's why. And it became a whole, after the fact, it's like, oh, I've destroyed the capital up there. Oops, sorry, but hey, you guys can join my new kingdom. You're cool. I like people of my same tribe. Yeah, showcasing makes sense. Melina doesn't react to anything in the DLC, and if it was already made but removed, this would explain the lack of reaction as well as her not saying anything. I don't know if it was necessarily it was all made, but I would say that, yeah, I think a lot of it was at least conceptually there. I think the problem was that they didn't have any idea where they were going to do, go with those concepts. And then when it came to, making the DLC and stuff, they had to make a map that they feel would justify, like, an Elden Ring DLC, right? And then they had to, make sure it had all its, requisite bosses and things. So yeah, I honestly think it was just a matter of, I think it's just a matter of there was a few hang-ups in the lore, mostly concerning Mesmer, Mikola, and, America's past, I guess, to a lesser extent, that Miyazaki really wanted, to expand upon properly. And then outside of that, it was like, okay, whatever else that we could potentially like throw in there, right? Like they had the Putrescent Knight, which seems like, at least based on the code, was originally planned to be like a Glowmide Queen Knight, but I would want to look at the text myself to see if that's actually true. But like stuff like that, where they probably were like, again, it's the same thing as the base game. They probably went through multiple ideas, and eventually they have all these models. They have to use them for something. So they come up with something cohesive that fits with the lore that they're trying to convey. It's just a few small things or whatever. It's not gonna be anything major or anything, because the big stuff again would be Mesmer, which we got, you know, sufficient of. Though he kind of feels like a very minor character in the grand scheme of things. Like, why do you even exist? And Mikola, who's obviously the star of the DLC. Though, from what I understand, I think people have a worse opinion of Mikola now after the DLC, right? I'm not sure if it's for the reasons I would necessarily have a lower opinion of him. I would say that I think his character just feels kind of wasted. It's like, oh wow, his childhood crush, I guess, quote unquote. That's what his character's gonna boil down to, right? Trying to create a perfect world with his crush. Okay, sure. And it's his bro. I don't think I like that. Like I said, we already have the statues up there, so we don't need that. It struck me as weird of how seemingly irrelevant Melania was to Mikola in the DLC, because all the stuff that's relevant between Mikola and Melania is in the base game, right? This is all the stuff to add on top of that stuff that you get. And again, this goes back to what I've said before. These DLCs tend to not elaborate on the stuff you would expect, because they're basically expected to act as a supplement to what you already have. Not to add like whole heaping new bunch of stuff on top of it to what you already have plenty of lore for, right? So we already have plenty of lore on Melania and Mikola and their relationship, and how much Mikola cares about his twin sister and wants to create that kinder world, in large part for her, which I completely forgot. I forgot about how much her disease or whatever really kind of focused him on that unalloyed gold thing, right? That really kind of broke his faith in Golden Order fundamentalism, right? He needed to have a better gold, right? He needed to create a purer gold. So, like, looking through that lens and stuff, like, I'm not surprised Melania is not a huge focus, or even mentioned at all, I don't think, in the DLC. Hey, John. I'm glad they have seemingly wrapped up the Elden Ring concept. I'm really excited about what FromSoft is going to do next. Yeah, like I said, I feel like if Elden Ring does have a future, it's probably going to be like Miyazaki wants to push for and make it all about... Is there anything I'm really missing I want to grab? No. It's probably going to be something like films or TV or something. I look forward to what seeing Miyazaki and company do next. I would love to see them do a Bloodborne 2. Just because I think Bloodborne 2 has the best sequel potential of all the titles. Though I would be okay... I would not be okay with a Dark Souls 4. I think let Dark Souls die. Dark Souls 3 is a fine place to end the series, please. If you do any more Dark Souls, let it be remakes or something. I'd also be interested, though, in a Demon Souls 2. I'd love for them to revisit the lore of Demon Souls with all the new experience they have as developers and writers from Miyazaki specifically. He does use the ring incantation to fight, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he does that. But, like, that's not really, like, you know, directly referencing Melania in the same way, right? Like, that's just kind of like, okay, yeah, that's like, you know, it's Mikola. Of course he's going to use ring incantations. Like, that's, like, the main thing we know of that he... That's, like, that's, like, his signature, like, magic, right? Demon Souls 2, gang, lol. How in the world would they redo Dark Souls 4 beyond a parody? The best chance, I would say, if they really want to do a sequel to Dark Souls, is to make it like a prequel side story thing. The problem with Dark Souls as a franchise is that, and this could be argued for all of Miyazaki's games, is that Miyazaki has too much of a problem where he feels that the games need to follow through like a very central premise. In Dark Souls' case, is that question of the light and dark, you know, link the fire or don't link the fire. When the games themselves and their worlds are what fans are really care about, and they're happy to play any game that lets you go through an interesting world to explore, which is what FromSoft does a really good job at. So you could make it like just a story of like, I don't know, the hero of Astora, and then fighting off the evil eye and stuff. Create a game that's around that with the Dark Souls game mechanics and stuff, right? Obviously before on death and stuff, right? So it wouldn't really work in the way that they would want to, but you can come up with like some game that happens with, you know, post-Undead Curse or whatever, and just have it where it expands on a lot of the lore for the older games while having this own little small side story that, you know, it's okay, it exists, but, you know, the focus should be on like just expanding on the world and stuff. Because let's be honest, most players play the games for the games and the exploration and the experience and stuff, and they don't care about the lore. They'll watch some video by Vati about the lore after the fact, right? So what's important is not the what's really important is not the subject or the content that players are going to experience story-wise. It's the feel, the ambiance, and the wonder of exploration that they're going to go through. And then they leave, you can leave, like, the few fans that care about the lore, like me or Vati or whoever, or you guys in the chat, I assume, to actually go through and, like, you know, take all the bit of lore bits and slowly, you know, add it to what we already know about the lore and build up on it that way. That would be cool. But again, Miyazaki seems to be the type of person where he really feels like he needs to tie it to the central thematic premise of his games, and you can't really deviate from that. Bloodborne, though, has the most flexible premise in that regard, right? Because it's literally just, dude has to... Like, what would you need to make a Bloodborne game, right? As just like a premise. It's a guy comes in with a strange mystery about some arcane substance that we will learn has deeper implications for the nature of the universe and the world that we exist in, right? The person will end up with amnesia in some how, and then they're forced to explore through a place littered with beasts and arcane monstrosities, right? Like, it's really not hard to recreate that premise in this world, right? And I've talked about it with Acer Aesthetics before. You can make it as something as simple as take the executioners, have them find, like, what's left of Yharnam after the events of this game, and then they go off to some neighboring town, like what we saw in the distance behind Forbidden Woods and stuff. It's like you see two other cities right there on the horizon. It's like, just go to one of those cities. It has the same style as Yharnam, apparently, right? Just have them go to one of those cities. And then have them, like, you know, restart the healing church there, and then, like, tell a story about there, and you can do some cool new concepts. Like, what happens if the executioners, they use the beasts, but the beasts are, like, you know, cattle or whatever, right? So they use them as, like, you know, beasts of burden or slaves or hard labor or whatever, and because the executioners are the executioners, they're more fanatic, they don't understand all the higher stuff, at least at first. Maybe there could be a secret faction that understands the truth and how all of this, there is no gods or anything, it's all a sham or whatever, right? Like there's so much you can do there. In sort of advancing the world building, while still staying true to the Bloodborne premise. Sickle theme is one of his favorites. Yeah, that's for sure. I care about the lore, I'm just slow at picking up on it. Right, like, exactly, that's what I'm saying, though. Like, so the people who care about the lore, they'll go out and search for the lore. It doesn't matter what that lore is, we just want to be able to actually understand what we're looking at, and, you know, intellectually reflect on the story and what it means, right? For most players, they don't care. It's just a video game that's fun to play, right? And it gives them cool visuals and things to look at, right? Like, it's part of, like, this collective experience where, like, the mystery of the storytelling is useful because it doesn't detract from the gameplay. It lets them focus on the gameplay side of things, and they can engage with the narrative side at their leisure, right? You don't have to sit through cutscenes and listen to exposition, or in the case of some people, skip through the exposition dialogue, right? In order to enjoy these games, right? Because there's so few, like, cutscenes and stuff that have those types of lines. Bloodborne is so good, yeah, it is. Bloodborne gameplay and atmosphere was so good that I bothered to care about the lore. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, it's one of those things where it will happen naturally with the players if they choose to do so. And if that's just them watching a Vati vid, then fine, so be it. Like, I don't see why that's a problem. Oh wow, we broke that. When did that happen? Yeah. Bloodborne scope has always been, its strength is always been that the scope is smaller, for sure. That is why I say it has the best sequel potential, and why I wish Miyazaki would do the same thing with his Dark Souls or something, if he really wants to make another Dark Souls game. Because he's clearly exhausted the Age of Fire plotline. Just do something smaller scale, separate, and then fine, we'll have our Dark Souls quote-unquote 4. You can give it a new tagline and stuff so you can get away from the number scheme. That'll make the advertising department happy, because then they're like, yay, we don't have to try to get people to play a game without having to play the other games, because that's always the annoying part, right? Okay, yeah, we don't care about that. We already got the stuff we want there. Alright, chat. I'm trying to think, and I haven't been able to think of anything, like, I really want to get screenshots for. Because we got so many, right? I guess we can go back up to the Murgo stuff, see if maybe there's something I missed up there that I really want to get a shot of, but I really don't think so. I think we're going to end this soon. Yeah, it's definitely, yeah. There's definitely, I would definitely agree. Despite the smaller scope, the world has so much potential. I would say it even has more potential than the other games because it is not limited by its large scope, right? Like I said, I think the fact that Miyazaki feels obligated to always make some big world-changing premise with his Elden Rings and his Dark Souls, and to a lesser extent his Demon Souls, I think that's always going to be a limiting factor. Now, Demon Souls, though, I still think has a lot of potential, right? Because you just have to... The only thing you need for Demon Souls is for someone else to find the old one, wake up the old one, and restart the whole put them in the fog thing. It could be new countries, new peoples, new places, new history. Like, there's a lot of potential there. You really don't need much to get a Demon Souls sequel going. And the only thing that you would really need to do is perhaps come up with a unique angle with which to make it so you're not just rehashing the same stuff in Demon Souls 2. But like I said, you could have it be where, like, maybe instead of kings, we're dealing with, like, I don't know, maybe something approaching like a republic or a constitutional monarchy or something. And then you kind of focus on how the people change, but the underlying human nature doesn't, right? Because that's been, like, a whole thing with Demon Souls, right? So you could really kind of maybe dig in to see how, like, the political bodies are, like, changing, how people have reacted or changed in response to the events of the last two Demon Scourges or whatever, right? Maybe how, and yet still see how nothing really has changed though beneath that, and that the hope for mankind is truly only showcased by if the player chooses to give in to demonhood or not, right? Like, again, like, it's not a unique, a completely, totally unique angle, but at least it gives you something, another, like, angle of which you can kind of take it that I think Miyazaki would be happy with. Dark Souls 3 could have just been Ring City. That could have tie-in stuff, but fans would likely have variety over just being one place. I think, all things considered, Dark Souls 3 turned out very great considering what Miyazaki was working with, right? Because it's clear Miyazaki wanted to take the concept of DS2, right? Of this idea of where the flame goes, it bringing lands from its original place of habitation along with it, and took it to its logical conclusion, right? And then with that was able to sort of bring the two previous games together into one harmonious, what's the word? Harmony, I suppose. Well, no. One harmonious, I don't want to say singularity, because that's not the word, but I don't know. But you get what I mean. Kind of like put a nice little bow on the previous two games, right? But yeah, if you took, like, say, a smaller scale story and just made it something like Ring City, right? Where the entire game revolved around just, like, the history and the past with the pygmies, and it didn't have anything to do with the fire or whatever. It was about, like, maybe dealing with the calamities and stuff that the Ring City had to deal in the immediate aftermath of undeath showing up. That would have been cool, but that wasn't the game we got. Whole. Yep, whole could work. Yeah, one harmonious whole. I wish DSC had the Eclipse mechanics to get through development. I don't. I honestly don't care for the quote-unquote Eclipse mechanics, because we see the Eclipse mechanic pretty much in its final form in the Elden Ring. And it's basically just, it wouldn't really affect anything. It would just be, we have time advancing. There would be different times of day and stuff based on, like, areas and things, and, like, you know, at certain points in the game, those time of day things would probably change. And maybe there'd be a few areas where it'd still be static or whatever for lore reasons or thematic reasons. You can figure out which one it is, right? I'll be honest, I think that Miyazaki was way too obsessed with having a time of day cycle in his games. Like, he's always wanted to do that, and then when he actually did it, it was like, okay, well, was it worth it? Because time of day in Elden Ring is kind of, like, inconsequential. Yeah, I can't get what I want there. Yeah, I know. These guys respawn, right? I think you guys told me that last time we were trying to take pictures of these, so I should be able to get away with doing this, right? I see you zooming in on that. Listen, I'm trying to get a good angle on his face, but unfortunately he's too fat. He's a long boy. You can't get a look at his face from behind, unfortunately. I tried for getting gummy bears from the gas station. What have I missed? The stream, unfortunately. I don't know if you saw Tyrone, but the stream kind of went down, and now we're on new stream with new BGM. All right, buddy. Oh, well, that was me jumping too early. Well, I didn't see anything I really wanted to get up here anyway. Oh, you know what I forgot to do when I went back to the shop? I forgot to level up. Whoops. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I think we've had enough time of the Melina's Gonna Get Me music. Let's go back to Agnes Eon. There we go. Chill music. Unfortunately. Yeah, so unfortunate that they respawn, man. Listen, I'm happy. I can always go back and get more shots of them if I need to. Ow! Man, that hurt, buddy. Oh. Really? I'm surprised that didn't work there. Oh. Low range. What kind of fighting styles technology would you want a new Soul series to have? Ooh, that's a good one. What would I want to see them add to Souls that hasn't been done yet? I would like them to bring back vaulting along with jumping and make it part of one seamless aspect of the game where I can just like climb over anything really and jump around and all that stuff. I would like that. I think the games could also potentially benefit if they add something like flying. Not like Breath of the Wild style per se, more so like I'm thinking like Sly Cooper series with like the, what was it, the paraglider, I think they called it, right? Something like that where you can just kind of, you know, like float down after jumping from high places to get around and stuff. I think that would be cool. Maybe they want to include that with that. I would also like it if they do like a more modern or sci-fi setting. If they kind of start playing around with like you using different types of vehicles and things. Also, if they want to keep going with the open world idea. What else could we do that could meaningfully change? That's more like for exploration and getting around and stuff. Oh, also like maybe like, you know, walking on walls and stuff if they really want to play with like, you know, like dreamscapes or, you know, something similar. I really like that in Honkai Star Rail, how you could like kind of have like this almost disorienting experience about being like, oh, I'm walking on this wall and now I'm walking on that wall and now I'm walking over there and then I'm walking right. That's kind of cool. So I would love to see more games try playing around with that, especially if it's a Souls game. Holy hell. Imagine evading, gliding down to the host, and plunge attacking from the sky. Yeah, exactly. Also, plunge attacks. I miss plunge attacks. They don't function the same way in Elden Ring, and it just kind of feels weird. Right? This kind of makes me sad. I'd like my old style plunge attacks to be back, you know? More chunks. Oh no. So like, yeah, that would be something I'd love to see them bring back, is just that feeling of weight and stuff when you commit to a plunging attack and things like that. Maybe make it more like Sekiro style, because if I recall correctly, there's a few type of plunging attack moves you can do in Sekiro, right? Like, that really feels satisfying, like you really kind of like go down like a dive bomb on the opponent and like, you know, get them, right? Am I wrong about that? Oh wait, what? Oopsie. I was like, I don't remember this music changing so much. Yeah, okay, Agnes Eon needs to be on loop. Whoops. You got some blue elixir to sneak? No, I ran out of that. We used it all, I think, up here last time, if I recall. I think it was actually to get shots of those pigs, if I remember correctly. Let me look right now, chat. One sec. What are we missing here when it comes to... This is Yahar Ghul. We got all the shots I wanted for Yahar Ghul. Tumeru, Nightmare of Mensis. Right, so... Huh. It's not showing up for you guys, unfortunately. There we go. There we go. So let's see, we got this here. Oh, I'll be honest, I think I like that better than the shots I got later on. Oh wow, I got this exact same oh man, I love past Loki sometimes. Oh yeah, we gotta zoom in on that now. We got the flower. Oh, I got this thing too already. Okay, cool. Yeah, like I said, I got the statues up there. Now we got all this here. I think I want to delete that shot. Yeah, I don't like that. There. Yep, we got some good ones there. Good ones there. Maybe it could have looked a little lower so you can have that that grave be a little bit closer in the center. But Darkbeast Pearl is my favorite Pokemon. My friend would really want a Souls game RPG focused on Asian setting, but their main Japanese cultural cameo is Guy with Cursed Sword. I'll be honest, I don't know how that would go now that we have Sekiro, right? Because now they have their action game that's set in, like, you know, feudal Japan, right? During the Sengoku era. So I feel like they'd rather just make a sequel to that game if they wanted to do any sort of you know, game set in a Japanese setting now. Unless it was like a wildly different genre, like say Kuon or something like that. Mesoamerican from Soft Game for me. Ooh, that'd be an interesting idea. Them doing their take on a Mesoamerican, you know, style-inspired setting. Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. We kind of get a little bit of that in DS2, right? But it's just not thing major. This is a weird question, but how are you supposed to build a dynasty with Ronnie? She's a doll. Can she even have kids? No. Again, you have to keep in mind, Tyrone, that whenever we joke about, like, you know, characters being like, oh, I'm gonna marry my brother or something like that, like, we're talking about in a platonic sense, essentially. Like, the marriage isn't about the romantic or sexual stuff in order to create a dynasty of progeny. The purpose is simply to establish yourself as the establish your dominion over the world itself and its fate, essentially, right? Like, that's the idea of you becoming the Lord of Cinder or the Dark Lord, or in the case of Elden Ring, right, the Elden Lord, right? Is that you essentially take control. You become the king of the world, essentially, right? You decide the nature of the nature and the rules and the logic which the world will follow. And because of that, the whole thing about, like, you know, technically all the demigods are all vying for, you know, the entire Shattering is essentially a war where all the demigods are vying for who gets to marry their mom, right? But, like, it's the point of the quote-unquote marriage where they become, like, Marika's Elden Lord is that, you know, she's just, you know, there as a vessel of the Elden Ring, and they become the Lord who will decide how to repair that Elden Ring and then be left to rule on Marika's behalf over that world that they will together, quote unquote, create. And so in the case of Ronnie and stuff, Ronnie wants to take that order and yeet it away from the planet that it's on and go all the way off into the deepest recesses of the cosmos where the greater whale and all the stars and stuff are. And we're essentially going along with her just for the purposes of helping protect her from all the arcane forces in that dark void of the night sky that are obviously going to come after her, just like the outer gods we see on the terrestrial plane are trying to you know, take control of the world and its order and stuff like that, right? Like, so we're more so her bodyguard than anything. We're not about creating a dynasty for her. The other one who cares about dynasties is Moog. And that's more so, it seems to be, because he's trying to establish his own dynasty of Mogwyn under blood that's going to be separate from Marika's order, right? Also, Marika had children with an aspect of herself. So how sexual was that? I like to think that there was actual intercourse between Marika and Radigan, because my understanding is that Marika and Radigan are able to create a dual projection, kind of similar to like what Morgott does with Margit, right? Where you can essentially have some sort of other self with tangible presence, even if it's obviously not the exact same as the original body, right? So I think they were able to have intercourse with each other so that Radigan could impregnate Marika and therefore produce offspring like Melania and Mikola. I'm sorry, sir. It's actually pronounced dynasty. Oh, yes, I forgot. Our new dynasty. Where is fair Mikola? I forgot. Forgive me, Goldman. Yeah, marriage in name mostly, yeah. Again, it's mostly the idea of having a contract for that way you can have the, it's mostly, again, like a marriage contract, so that way you can, quote-unquote, legally, in a cosmic sense, take over leadership of, and ownership of the Elden Ring and stuff. It's so corny, Outlaw. Anyway. So with all that in mind... Yeah, I know, it's so awful. There are flowers in the ROM cutscene, right? So... okay. Nothing else new we want here, right? Yeah, no. We have all this. That's a good one. Huh, I have a similar shot that I took to... So we have some of these with the pigs, but they're kind of far away. We have this stuff with the close-ups. Oh, another one of the nightmare, but closer up here. Okay. Oh, I kind of have that shot too. Cool. Yeah, there really were not a lot of shots I need to take today. This is on the floor. Can't remember which chest that is now. More shots of that stuff. That's fine. Okay, that's the last shot. Okay, yeah. So yeah, we got pretty much everything that I could possibly want in terms of shots there. Some lizards have asexual reproduction. I assume that worked like that. Yeah, but, you know, they're not lizards. But yeah, no, I feel like the lore subtly indicates that that Radigan and Marika have acted as two separate bodies. Like, for example, while Radigan's married to Renala, Marika seems to still be doing her own stuff, right? So I would assume that that in order to produce any children, that they would in fact be essentially, you know, screwing each other, right? The only question I would have then is assuming Radigan didn't exist from the very start, when did Marika and Radigan like discover how they could do that? Like, was that something where it was like, oh, did they figure that out quickly? Were they experimenting with that, or was it something that came in like later on? Based off Norse gods, so you'd assume they still need intercourse? Yeah, like, I feel like just generally, like, from what we've seen and stuff, I don't get a sense of there being, like, anything, like, supernatural with the births of a lot of the characters, and stuff. You could argue that the second, like, layer to all of this, beyond, like, the physical aspect, is that there's something weird going on in the cosmic sense, right? But again, that requires me to know what the cosmology is, and... I sure as hell don't want to bother with that right now. Yeah, we're not getting anything there. Oh, you know what would be kind of cool? Getting a good shot of that baby with the moon right there. Let's see. Nope, nothing there. Oh, cool. Little angel thing in that little corner there. But all of it's very generic stuff. Nothing really, like, stands out as meaningful. Look, here we get, like, a bunch of random animals and crap. Like, does this really matter? Probably some stock asset that they found somewhere and threw on here. Yeah, I would not use one-to-one with the Norse mythology bit. Like, I feel like, again, my position on external evidence like that is always like, you know, whatever the inspirations are, we have to look at whatever the evidence in the game is ultimately telling us. And I think the game is telling us that the most likely outcome is that, you know, if America and Radigan produced children, they produced it like everyone else would, and that there's nothing special there. They're not some weird monstrosity like, say, Metyr, the mother of the fingers and all of that, right? Like, how Metyr produces fingers, I don't know, some weird magic crap, right? Like, she's some child of the greater will, like, he can make whatever magical whatever it is, right? Can make some magical entity of that nature that can produce kids by itself, it seems like. Sure, whatever. Who am I to argue? But like I was saying earlier, I would not expect, like, I would not expect us to learn anything, additional on that front. Unless it somehow, is, like, indirectly through, like, implications we learn from, like, Miquella and Trina. Because at least my sense is, it looks like, Miquella and Trina have something similar going on. Though, I can't tell if it's the exact same, or if it's, like, Miquella created Trina in the course of trying to, you know, create his dream world and stuff. Like, he turned his quote-unquote love of his heart into its own conscious entity in his soul. Like, he created it himself. And again, maybe that's the same thing that America did. Like I said, it could hold implications, but I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the cosmic stuff in Elden Ring is not really a focal point so much, so that it's not interesting. How do I feel about the magic, cosmic, you know, larger world implications of the stuff in Elden Ring? I'll be honest, I find, how should I put this? I find the stuff with the greater will and stuff like that interesting, but only to a point. Like, I like it in a very cursory way. Like, there's nothing where I'm like, oh, I don't feel, like, desperate to understand, the ins and outs of this world and its mechanics, in the same way that, say, I felt when it came to Bloodborne, which, admittedly, in Bloodborne, it, like, clicked with me pretty much instantly as I was looking at the script of that game. But in the case of, like, say, you know, Dark Souls, it was definitely an experience. It was fun for me to actually, like, kind of think through, like, my thoughts and, like, what I learned, and I learned some new stuff. I was like, oh, wow, and it, like, kind of expanded the way I think about these games and stuff, right? So that was kind of cool, right? And I always, like, was fascinated about that world. But, like, Elden Ring, I feel like I don't even have, like, that cursory, like, desire to understand it to the same degree, right? So, I don't know. It feels very weird to me. St. Trina reminded me of Deshandra and her sisters. Yeah, similar idea, right? Like, almost like a fragment of, like, emotion that became its own separate entity. Greater Will sounds very akin to Bloodborne God stuff, even more so in the DLC. See, the thing is that the Greater Will is clearly... Okay, so, it's very clear, especially after the DLC, that my general conception of the cosmology seems like my very, very broad conception of the cosmology is right. So you have, like, the Earth, which is the original rock, and that's the one great. And then the thing is, okay, so you have this one great, that which all that exists, this one singular substance of rock, right? And then you have that which doesn't exist, and that would be, like, you know, the emptiness, the nothingness, the abstract, the imaginary, right? And that is the greater will, right? The non-tangible, right? That is the greater will, right? And that is, of course, the darkness of space to some extent. Now, I've gone back and forth on the Discord about the idea of maybe how this idea of the greater will being the sun could maybe play into it, especially because now we know that, at least in the code, the microcosms that the Meteor holds in her fingers is in fact is called a sun. But again, that could be for a variety of reasons, such as how like it glows bright, it explodes and stuff like that. Maybe there's some idea of it has like the gold edges on the end. There could be a ton of reasons that don't have lore implications for why the developers call that in the code, right? So again, I wouldn't say it's anything solid, but the point is that you have this idea that the powers of gold and its dual aspect of shadow are all present in this great nothingness of the void of space, right? This great, I guess you could argue, cosmic ocean out there, and the greater will is able to then create all the entities that exist and all that is in disparity by interacting with this one great. Now we're told that Meteor is the first shooting star that falls down, so presumably that would have to come before the shooting star, which is the Elden Beast, which became the Elden Ring, came down. So again, it could be a case that the greater will wanted to have an entity with which to express itself before it even created that entity in the first place. So it's sort of a case of, I know I want to have a creation with which it will have a will and consciousness like myself, so I'm going to create entities which do that. Now that makes me wonder now if the Elden Ring is truly responsible for the creation of disparity, which creates the world as we know it, or if the Elden Ring was sort of created after the fact to help with the codifying. So I'd have to think that over and stuff like that. But yeah, it's looking more and more like, it's looking more and more like the greater will as an entity is simply, it's as part and parcel to the universe as the Earth is, right? Like both of them like sort of coexist in perpetuity. And it's simply their interaction with each other which has caused any bits of change as we know it in this universe, right? Brought on by the greater will, of course, because it's the one that has the will, right? Compared to Bloodborne, where the great ones are all humans who are part of like this big pantheistic primordial blood soup that has turned into all these forms that we know as the reality as we experience it, right? And then they tap into like the Akashic record, which exists in duality with this primordial blood soup in reality, and then manage to sort of unlock the cheat codes with which there allows them to transcend into a higher existence, which ironically comes with its own limitations, because they seem to get too deep in the sauce, as it were. So that's very different from what we get with the greater will, essentially. But again, it's hard to say because the greater will's qualities aren't so well defined. I can't tell if it can be comparable to say the Abrahamic gods, like we can see in Demon Souls. So like, is the greater will eternal? Is the greater world omniscient? Is it omnipotent? Those qualities aren't really clarified, and they'll be impossible to clarify. Because if they were all true, then it's quite possible that the greater will is purposefully limiting its the full extent of its potential for some personal reasons that we could not possibly fathom, right? They'd be beyond our understanding, like divine mysteries, right? Microcosm is a word that comes up in alchemy. Oh, that's cool to know. Yeah, I agree. It's definitely there that it has impact on the world building and stuff, but you could say that about all the games. All the games have important cosmological facets that are usually if they're not like talked about all the time, they're at the very least definitely central to the events of those games. Yeah, the greater will is just wordlessly something. What it makes is more important than anything. To some extent, but the problem is that if you have a will, which is, a divine author to everything that happens in the game, then there naturally has to become the question then is, why is it doing the things that it's doing? And that becomes the major question then. Yeah, I would agree. I definitely feel like Bloodborne... Again, I think it's because of the smaller scope. I think with Bloodborne, like, similar to Demon Souls. Demon Souls is more so because it has, like, this big scope, but it's, like, it's not as fleshed out among all the games, right? So it's a lot simpler in the details. But Bloodborne is definitely one of those games where, because of its smaller scope, it's able to kind of get around and get across all its key important ideas of its world in a very concise and satisfying manner. The other feature he has is that he makes him similar to the Abrahamic God, is that he has desires to create and give that desire to his creation. Something else that about it is concrete. Yeah, exactly. Right? Like someone was saying earlier, we know that the greater will is something. It exists out there, right? And that's about all we can really say with absolute certainty about it. And there's nothing that we can say with too much. Partially because there's so many questions on whether or not some things attributed to the greater will actually come from the greater will and aren't just a false attribution by powers who would wish to subvert the greater will's what's the word? Leniency, I guess you could say, right? To sort of let its creation act on potentially its own, and not be, you know, like an all-controlling deity which, you know, denies free will to its creation, right? And be able to act on their own, right? Like America. Like, there's a huge, like, again, I haven't been in the game myself, so I don't know how I'd land on this, but the idea that America, for example, is actually the one that's behind every single event that takes place in the game and has been manipulating us the entire time along with everybody else. Maybe, if that's true. And brings a lot of questions then about the stuff that has been attributed to the greater will up until this point, including the greater will forsaking the demigods and things like that nature. Like, okay, maybe the greater will did forsake the demigods, but did it make any meaningful difference when it did so? Like, or has everything that's been happening been purely because of other agents whom the greater will has not influenced whatsoever? Elden is really just a case of them taking a pretty crazy setting with only so many ways of communicating info while also trying to be a huge open world. I think that's true to some extent, yeah. But it really is not that much different from all of their other Miyazaki games in the catalog, right? Like, I really feel like the only major difference that Elden Ring has is that what's the word? I feel like the only major difference in Elden Ring is just that it's on a bigger scale. Yeah, I think it's the best way. It's just the sheer scale is so much bigger because of the open world, like you said. So I really don't feel like that's a uniquely Elden Ring problem, because I feel like any of their games, big or small, would still be trying to try to tell that crazy setting and limit info. The only thing I would complain about with Elden Ring is because of the scale, there's a lot of reused assets, and it can be difficult to, it can be a lot more strenuous to accept the suspension of disbelief for the world when you're using, like, the same, you know, like, ruins thing, like, the umpteenth time. Again, they do it well enough with what they have or whatever, but it definitely does feel like, they're stretched to tell the story within the world of the size that they have it at. Elden Ring's more to my preference personally. Yeah, everyone's gonna have different preferences and stuff. Like I said, I would definitely put Elden Ring on, like, probably one of the lower games in terms of, like, my favorite in Souls games and stuff. Like, I would probably have, if I had to, like, order them, I'd probably have it Dark Souls 1, then Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. I'd have to really think about which one would take the top spot there. Demon Souls, then Elden Ring, then Dark Souls 2. Now, Dark Souls 2 and Elden Ring aren't close by any means in terms of, like, that ranking there, so don't let the order fool you, but yeah, I'm never gonna get a good shot at you, unfortunately. I just need to accept that. Yeah, it's not to hate on Elden Ring here. Like I said, if I sound negative about Elden Ring, it's really not. It's just me trying to have a, trying to dissect and properly critique the game, both for its good and its bad, and just for, like, you know, what it is. Because now, you know, the DLC's done, so we can finally do that. We can finally say definitively, okay, this is Elden Ring in its fullest, warts and all, right? Dark Souls is big scale too, doesn't get too bigger than disparity itself. Yes, but the difference is with Dark Souls is we're talking about the actual open world you explore, right? Like, the biggest area that you can explore, really, if I recall correctly, is, like, Izalith, right? Because there's so much, like, you know, it's why it's so infamous, right? There's so much just running around, like, open, empty areas in Izalith and stuff like that. That's not really what you get in most of Dark Souls. Most of it's very tight, a lot of corridors, right? Very condensed, very dense, packed type of areas, right? So I would say that, and in terms of like actual like coverage, you don't really cover a lot in the original Dark Souls. Dark Souls 2, you can argue, is different, right? It's like the pre-Elden Ring, right? They were trying to make you, you know, do a cross-continent adventure without using the open world, right? And they kind of fell on their face on that, but hey, you know, I guess you can say they tried. It's what made me get really into this game's lore. I've been in a couple of their other games and had only a pretty casual interest in the lore. Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, I don't really like that shot either. Yeah, like I said earlier, though, like, I honestly feel like the only reason I would put Dark Souls so high in terms of what I like about it is because of nostalgia and stuff, because it is my first Souls game, personally. So I feel biased in that regard, right? So I feel it's very hard for me to be able to properly judge how good the world is objectively versus, say, something like Elden Ring. Because I think Elden Ring definitely has a lot more fleshed out about its characters and world and stuff. There's a lot of interesting, meaty stuff in that world, and the way that they are able to convey that thanks to the open world elements, right? But I also find that there's a huge charm in the smaller scale stuff you get in Bloodborne, Demon Souls, and to a lesser extent Dark Souls, right? Where you're covering, like, you know, not such a wide open landmass, and you have a more sort of focused area of interest and things like that, with, you know, fewer characters of that have been fleshed out to a substantial degree, but, you know, they all kind of work together and be able to tell their relatively simpler narrative, right, compared to the complex politics and history that goes on in Elden Ring and stuff. She was saying Melina isn't Torrent? Oh no. No, the theories are getting wilder. I would love to play a game taking place during Islith's Golden Age. Oh man, what I would do to play any game that would take me through Islith more. God, I love Islith. Going from Dark Souls 3 and dropping it at Abyss Watch is interesting to me. I don't know. It's hard for me to judge because obviously Dark Souls 3 wasn't my first game. I don't know, it just feels very weird for me because I feel like Dark Souls 3 had a very smooth difficulty curve and stuff. So I like, Abyss Watchers was tough, but I wouldn't say they were like that tough. Like, I would drop the game probably. But again, I don't know, maybe I would have if I've done it. But it feels very weird to me thinking about that because I'm like, yeah, like Dark Souls 1 was the one that I first got through and beat. So like, I don't know. It's definitely a weird feeling. Who's keeping those lamps up there? Oh, no, you beat Abyss Watchers, then you drop the game. Okay, no, that's different then. Okay, good to know. That makes it even weirder, though. You were like, ah, you know what, this isn't for me. I finally beat that boss, I think I'm done here. The game just didn't click for you yet, you don't think? Yeah, that makes sense. Technically, Dark Souls 2 is my first FromSoft game. Oh, really, Xavier? That explains a lot. Elden Ring is interesting because it gives me investment in its bosses, characters, etc. with more direct storytelling, lots of main bosses, voice work. Also leads me to a little more frustration just because it makes me want more of that rather than being purely settled in that smaller scale. Do I feel... I will say this about the Elden Ring storytelling. I think Miyazaki has hit his limit on how much he can... he's willing to compromise on on his storytelling style that he's cultivated since Demon Souls. I guess you could argue maybe with the Armored Core stuff, you know, but Armored Core's always had its own thing. Like, this is very specific to, like, Miyazaki using, like, item descriptions and stuff, in combination with the, you know, the Metroidvania style, like, exploration, right? And my perspective is that I think because it was Martin's text that he was working with, Miyazaki felt obligated to convey as much about the characters and story as he felt he could. And so we end up with characters like Gideon Ofnir, which basically just are just yap about, like, demigod lore and stuff like that. And you might be like, well, it's not really that much lore. Yeah, but, like, it's a lot more stuff on that versus what we got in past games, which is, like, you know, a little bit of stuff on the cosmology of the worlds, which we don't really get in Elden Ring. A lot of the focus is on the demigods and stuff like that. So, I definitely can see how someone would be like, you know, why don't we just make it like a Sekiro, where it's a more traditionally told, game. Rather than, say, like a Dark Souls, where, like, the world and stuff is out there, but it has this very naturalistic, you know, dialogue and stuff, where characters only really talk about stuff that would make sense for you to talk about if you were someone who actually exists in this world versus, like, a player who had a window into seeing it, right? Because you know how it is, where, like, you hear the necessary exposition, you're like, ah, yep, this is for me, the viewer. This is definitely not something that the character should be talking about. You don't really get that in Dark Souls. They really, especially in the first game, Miyazaki really tried to limit it to only making where characters, you know, made sense talking, versus in Elden Ring, where, like, every other demigod has, like, a big speech trying to announce, like, I am Morgod, I am Melina, like, yes, we get it. Like, why are you having a speech to a guy who's about to die to you? Or at least you believe he's gonna die to you. Like, why are you doing this? Got stuck there, huh, friend? I do still like it a lot, but I do think Elden Ring retains a lot of their methods. Yeah, I agree. That's exactly how I feel about it. You feel it's really straining what makes the Souls game storytelling so unique. And again, it's not like it's not there, like I said. It's one of those things where there's so much stuff where it's like, you didn't really need that there. Some of it definitely feels, by Soul standards, redundant. Or something that they could have totally, if they really wanted to include some of that, some of the explicit information, they could have totally done it, in, like, another item or something, right? Keep in mind, I was mostly playing Resident Evil games and Call of Duty Zombies, etc. before playing DS3. It's a bit of a shift. Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Like, everyone has, you know, different games they're playing and different genres they're into. I haven't been into FPSs, though, for a very long time. Like, I think the last, like, FPS, like, I played for a significant amount of time was probably Halo 2. Like, it's been a long time. I guess if you include, like, third-person shooters, I also had, you know, Mass Effect and stuff like that. But, yeah, obviously, that's a very different game. Yeah, just empty stuff back there. Dark Souls clearly has some drama taking place, but Elden really is a giant apocalypse causing family drama. I'm trying to think about that. Yeah, I guess you could argue it, right? Like, all the events happen because of America breaking the Elden Ring in the first place, right? And there's, like, all the family drama is really, really brought on by that. Though you can always argue, like, a lot of the drama also goes into before that, right? With Ronnie and the Night of the Black Knives and all that. I don't know, there's just a lot to the Elden Ring lore because of how big of the history it is. And I would say that yeah, what someone was saying earlier, my biggest complaint would definitely be that, like, some of the older eras, because they're not the focal point of the main story, they end up kind of being left in the dust with, like, only the vaguest indications of what goes on. And maybe they'll be expanded upon further in future games, but it's just as possible they won't because it's something that Martin didn't elaborate on, and Miyazaki is only using it as, like, filler to help fill into, you know, the timeline, because, you know, the main focus for Martin was, like, the cosmology and the whole demigod family shit. I don't know. I played until after the intro of DS2 when I was a child and just got distracted and never got back in. As a child, you're playing an M-rated game? Like, Savior, why I never! Where were your parents? Maybe Ral and Ul was super important. Maybe they're just vague older civilizations. Yeah, exactly my point, right? Like maybe there's some, like, really good big lore stuff that Martin included, or maybe it's just something Miyazaki came up with to fill in the gaps for like some general periods and stuff. We know names and things were definitely not used to the same degree, right? Like Horalu and stuff was not part of Godfrey's name. So the entire idea of Godfrey even having a name before he was called Godfrey may have been something that Miyazaki came up with. Or if the idea that Godfrey was a name that he adopted when he became Elden Lord, it definitely wasn't Horalu was the name that Martin ever mentioned as being like the previous one, right? Like, so there's definitely things where we can say for certain that like there's stuff that is like basic knowledge of the base game that was nowhere in Martin's notes. It's quite possible there's other specific incidents or events which may not have been mentioned by Martin in his like whole mythology. That would have 100% been added by Miyazaki as a way to help flesh out like maybe a general idea or something. Isn't DS2 rated T now? Is it? I have no idea. I thought all these games were M. my dad was the one that suggested to me. Yeah, I'm just yanking your chain, guys. Believe me, I know. I very much know the feeling of parents who were not paying attention to who were not paying attention to what their kids were consuming. Bloodborne so quotable. Growling noises. Bloodborne. Cursed beast! You are not wanted here! Die! Die! There. All the quotes I can remember off the top of my head. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Majestic! A hunter is a hunter even in a dream! There, I'm done. It was by my side all along, my shining moonlight. Oh god. Oh yeah, there we go. It is there. Hey McFrenzy, how's Bloodborne going? It's going okay. I can't find any new screenshots really to take though. I really have like sort of sucked Bloodborne dry. Like I've been looking around, kind of wandering around here while chatting with chat, and like yeah. It's kind of not going anywhere. In fact, you know what, chat? I'm gonna quickly shift over to Star Rail because I'm gonna see if I can do a very quick little daily thing. Oh no! It looks like this town's finished. Yeah, this town's finished. I love the underground cities. Oh yeah, I think everybody would say the most memorable moment they had is going down the lift in Mistwood and finding the ruins of Nokron. I just think for like everybody, like that's just the moment where like they 100% like go through. I can turn off the background now. We're actually at actual Hoyoverse music. Right? Well, like that, I think that's the moment where people can actually like turn. Yeah, I lost my train of thought, Jet. Damn. I got distracted by turning off music, and somehow that made me forget everything. What the hell was that lag? Oh no, I was talking about the Eternal Cities, right? Thank you for the reminder, McFriends. Agreed, the lift was such a good feeling. Yeah, going down that lift, I feel like once you see those Eternal Cities, like that feeling of like you're just going down and down and down. Like you know exactly what the developers were going for with that moment, and it landed perfectly. Like it was exactly the feeling I wanted. Yes. Mine was going to Altus Plateau. Holy shit, a fantasy setting. Altus Plateau is definitely a very beautiful place. Wait, what the hell is this? What is this team? And who could forget?
Let me stay here a little longer in this body.
Yeah, Bloodborne definitely has a lot of good, just a lot of good lines to remember. I forgot how to play this now, chat. There we go. Alright, there we go. What the hell is this team? I swear, picking this team, getting this team set up is gonna take longer than the actual thing. Oh, it doesn't matter. What am I trying so hard for? I don't even need, we're not even gonna get Aventurine, we're just gonna do this. No, not you. Herda, where's Herda? There you are. Alright. I only need 3 characters, we're good.
Practice target?
Everyone wants to be granted eyes until they get what they ask for. Yeah, that's a way to put it.
Away.
For sure.
There's a good child. Upgrade configured.
we go. No, but yeah, what the hell is wrong with my...
We have a deal.
Why is my UI off to the corner? Huh? Like, what the hell happened to my UI? Forget your wallet! Nope.
Patience is my middle name.
Yeah, sure, Jade. I'm just wondering why the hell Himiko is off screen. Like, what the fuck did I do?
Practice target?
Is that gonna happen again?
Upgrade configured.
There's a good shot.
Lord channels all over the shop. You'll be one of the two. There we go. Okay.
There's no backing out now. For me or you.
There we go.
There's no backing out now. For me or you.
I didn't even do this properly. That's the best part. Oh.
Who's the little backstabber? You won't get away.
Oh, I didn't even need the new. There we go. All right, there we go. Farming done. Please be good. Yuck. Oh! Ah, damn it. If only that effect hit rate was a crit rate. Damn. Ah! Yeah. 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 It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Loki, stop breaking your games! I can't help it, Xavier! Okay? It's not my fault! The games just kind of break in my presence! They see me and they're like, Loki, did you ever think you ever want to be one of those game breakers? It's like, no, I don't. I just want to enjoy the video games. They're like, well, sorry. God said otherwise. Everybody asks, Cos, grant us eyes. Nobody asks, Cos, how are you feeling today? Shake my head, Normal fantasy, big evil lord castle. Dark fantasy, big evil rape lord castle. Exactly, Tyrone. That's how you know it's an M-rated fantasy story. It's got rape in it. No, but like, yeah, Dark Fantasy's a weird one, for me, because, like, I feel like the game that got it right the best was probably Dragon Age, like, in recent memory, where you have a game where it's like, yeah, it's dark, it's bloody, it's irreverent in many cases, but it has that humanity to it, where it's not doing it just to be edgy. It does it so that way it shows all facets in their full ugliness, right? There's still heroic people, there's still good people, there's still varying degrees of morality and systems in place for justice and law and love and all those things. But, you know, it's much like our world, and people aren't perfect. And I feel like a lot of time that doesn't get lost in Dark Fantasy, and it becomes this thing where either you have something very grimdark, where, you know, it gets that tone, like it wants to go more for an aesthetic, right? But the writing doesn't really match it. Or it just becomes this thing where, like I said, it's just pure, full-on, just like being edgy for edgy's sake. And I find that so disappointing, because I think Dark Fantasy, so far as we want to distinguish it from fantasy, has definitely a lot of potential to it, and there's just not a lot of like big franchises I think right now that really capture it. What is this game? Oh, this is Honkai Star Rail. I just wanted to kind of switch over here because I'm not doing anything important in Bloodborne right now. That saxophone kind of slaps, alright, I'll say it. Yeah, the music in Hoyoverse games are great. Since we're here, may as well do a Sim Uni while we're chatting, chat. Again, feel free to ask me anything Souls related. You don't have to like stop. This is still like a casual stream. Do I want to do... Yeah, we have to do 4, right? In order for me to try to get my my achievement. Dark Fantasy is a game of what's your own personal definition of this genre, I think. Yeah, it definitely feels that way, but I think you could say the same thing with RPGs in general. I feel like RPG as a genre itself has become watered down to be basically meaningless. Basically, whatever is called an RPG is an RPG nowadays. Because there's nothing really consistent about them that you couldn't find in any other games of those genre. It's just some combination of things that you can find in other games or once associated strictly with, like, the tabletop RPG type of setting, or... Not setting in, like, you know, the narrative sense, but more in, like, the, you know, the mechanical sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Alright.
Firefly Type 4. Activate.
Tons of games are just appending RPG aspects to themselves now, too. Really? Is that the thing now? Oh, God. That sounds awful. Like, unironically, that just sounds awful. It just makes it so meaningless. I need 4 of those, so... But I think it'll be fine. This, sure. More erudition. The new God of War stuff, for example, has tons of numbers and customization. Yeah, you know, I do think a lot of the more grindy games are having that problem now, where they kind of add those quote-unquote RPG aspects, just so that way they can, like, artificially inflate their runtime, because the game doesn't have a lot of content or stuff on its own. I do feel like, in some respects, a lot of modern gaming is over-designed, at least the AAA scene. So instead of having, like, your simple concepts for a simple game that's, you know, it's, you know, like, say your original Dead Space, right? The original Dead Space is only, like, what, 8, 10, 12 hours, maybe, is a full playthrough or whatever. But, like, it really, you know, it doesn't outstay its welcome or anything. Like, it feels like it fits that time you spent with it, and it's a worthwhile time. If the original Dead Space was made today with the remake and stuff, right? If they didn't try to stay faithful to that, it could have been so much worse. What do I want here? I think Fruit of the Alien Tree, right? Let's see. Let's make our team Topaz. God, I don't even know where my characters are anymore. There we are, Topaz. Aventurine. Herda. Jade. There we go. I think that'll do it. Rolling Thunder, Dead Space is such a vibe for real. Yeah. I'm disappointed to hear, apparently, that they're not planning on making a Dead Space 2 remake. Like, again, did the Dead Space 1 remake need to exist? No, but it was cool that it did and what they did with it. I would love to see them maybe do a even more conservative remake of Dead Space 2 with, like, the graphical upgrades and stuff. You already have all the audio and stuff. Maybe you can bring the actors back for some additional story content or things. Maybe, you know, some changes to, like, you know, improve the script. But, like, I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that. Let's see if everything. Yeah, sure, 20% chance. I always win my 20% chances, chat. Do I win my 40% chances? Yeah, I always win my 40% chances, chat. We'll get the destruction one and we'll try to replace it. 60. I always win my 60% chances. Okay, ooh. Increase shields. That's very important. 80% failure. I always win my 80%. Oh, no. Well, I got 1% HP, chat. I guess we'll see if I can survive. Really, no healing? Oh, no. This is gonna be terrible. I don't need this. I don't need to spend money. Fail. Yay! And then refuse, damn. Goddamn, going for the money achievement hurts sometimes.
Hey, you. Time to check your books.
You see the Dead Space animated series? Creepy as fuck. Animated series? No, I remember watching the original film, which was, you know, it was a mediocre film. It wasn't anything, like, too remarkable, right? But it was cool that they, you know, did the multimedia stuff. I never got around to seeing the sequel film, though, that they did for the second game. You know, people say there's not a wrong way to play Souls games, but when someone is struggling and I see they're playing on keyboard and mouse, in my opinion, there's people playing the game on hard mode. I do not have that opinion. I think there is a wrong way to play Souls game. It's playing with spirits in Elden Ring there. I said it. Yeah, we'll go with that one. And we can't spend money otherwise, so damn. What can I do here? Action delay is good. I don't have anything to heal, though, so this is going to be rough. And we'll do this for the crit rate. More crit is never a problem. Okay, adventuring, I'm...
Feeling lucky.
Wow, I'm feeling lucky, alright.
Upgrade configured.
Got that on first try.
There's a good child. Do as you
Yes. When I was little, I thought the darker the story, the more mature, but as... Ooh. Oh, gotta make sure I'm not dying here. Okay, we're good, we're good, we're good, we're good. We're all good, chat. Nothing's wrong with the world.
Investing in victory means playing the long game.
Look, a VIP. I always deliver.
There we go.
We have a deal. There's no backing out.
Wonderful.
now, for me or you.
Time to twirl.
Alright, and then we do this.
Who's the little backstabber? Time to twirl. This big diamond.
Let's see how this goes. 1 HP for everybody. This is gonna be very yikes. I can already see it.
Easy, Numby.
Oh god, this HP. I think we're gonna fail this one, chat, just because I took that bet. Sure.
The dice have been bust. Or maybe I'll take.
Anyway, as you were saying, Tyrone, when I was little, I thought the darker the story, the more mature. But as a 22-year-old man now, I honestly enjoy wholesome content more than anything now. I still love villains and dark storylines and things like that. Like, those are still my favorite. But I will admit, it was one series in particular. But there was watching that series awakened the paternal instinct in me, and it's made me enjoy heroes a lot more as a byproduct. Strangely, I've never really been into heroes growing up and for much of my life, but yeah, when I watched that show, that awakened something in me that I didn't know I had, and yeah, it was at that moment where I was suddenly like, yeah, I enjoy watching things where it's more about the people and the stories and like how they live and how they can, you know, triumph over evil and things. Like I understood that feeling more, right? Rather than me being sort of liking sort of villainous characters for, like, again, like they were cool, they were interesting, sometimes they were tragic, right? I still feel that way, but like I said, it's just I feel more rounded out as a person at this point in my life.
Oh dear.
There we go.
Bending the rules.
I don't usually use spirits, but I see it as more personalized NPC summons. Yeah, everyone will have their justification stuff. I personally just don't like them. I think they are a net negative on the game overall. I love me some happy endings where everything goes well. Basic! No, but yeah, I get it.
Go Numby.
Watching Elden Ring lore discussion can be kind of interesting because of just how popular it is. People can try and learn stuff just for who's the stronger one. I always find those types of tier lists kind of obnoxious, personally speaking.
Spend freely.
I'm gonna just do this just in case. Everyone's so low on HP, I don't want to take the risk. There we go. I feel like I now understand what Superman was going for when he was written. I appreciate characters like him a lot more than when I was younger. Yeah, I've never been too into the superhero genre still. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying, right? But you understand those types of characters a lot more.
Time to twirl.
Time for a lesson.
Let the valuation begin.
Let's do this.
The dice have been cast.
Bust.
Or maybe I'll take it all.
Just wait for the Elden Ring power scaling videos. Oh no. Like, don't those exist already? Like, I can't imagine they don't. But yeah, I agree. It's I find trying to do power scalings in Soul games even more silly than doing it in any other series, because at least in other series and stuff, there's like a lot of information that you could at least argue gives you context on who might be the more powerful of these characters, right? There really isn't anything in
Where there's
Souls.
a will, there's a way.
Like, it's whatever the writers decide, like, oh, this character will beat this character. Why? Is it because they're stronger than that one? I don't know, maybe not. I think we do this.
Bending the rules.
There we go.
Time to twirl.
Nice. Then this.
There's no backing out now. For me or you.
There we go.
Misery.
Almost dead.
Go Numby.
Hedge your bets. It's
Go do
on
this
me.
just in case. I don't trust this game.
Watch your head.
Yeah, very much already exists. Oh god. Oh, you're not dead? Come on, Jay, do it! Thank you. Thank you, girl. I love you.
There's no backing out now.
We're gonna do this too.
For me or you.
The market is unpredictable. Right. Investing in victory means playing the long game.
The dice have been cast.
I guess we're doing this one.
Bust. Or maybe I'll take it all.
I think power scaling bids are kind of cringe, personally. all I want when it comes to, like, learning more about characters and content is, like, what the canon tells us about what the characters they do. I don't need to know if they can beat Goku or some shit. Or if, like, you know, Radon is gonna beat Artorias in a straight-up fight or something. Like, I legit don't care. Oh, yeah, we'll do this.
I hit the mark.
Oh, wonderful.
Spend freely.
Do you know who?
Do this.
It's all yours.
One thing I can do about power scaling in ER is Morgoth's victory over Radon. Everyone has their own opinion on it. Well, yeah, most people that are in the camp of denying it definitely have an opinion on it, right? Like, no, it's not Radon. It's like one of his knights or something. It's like, no, that looks pretty much like Radon, you know? Like, you know, everything, like, you know, kind of looks very Radon-y, if you ask me.
Watch your head.
But yeah, when it comes to power scaling and stuff, when it comes to Radon, my perspective is simple. Radon is the strongest individual demigod by virtue of solely that he does everything he does while also, quote-unquote, sealing the stars, right? The fact that he's capable of doing that is what makes him the strongest demigod during the Shattering, even though, as far as we understand, he has lost every battle in the Shattering he's been a part of, right? And there's only two. The one in the second defense of Langdell helping Godric, right? Where Godric abandoned him like a wuss that he is, right? And left him to basically have to make the retreat on himself against Morgoth's harassing forces. And he left there with his red manes intact like a champ. Much better than Godric did. And then the second one, of course, with Melina, where we know why Melina is called the Undefeated. It's because she cheats and uses Rot when she's losing. Right? But, like, that's fine. Right? I don't have an issue with that. But I think a lot of people really want to make it where, like, no, if he's the strongest, that means he could have never lost. But it's like, then there's no point in Melina being the undefeated and stuff leading up to her fight with Radon, right? Like, why wouldn't Radon be known as that instead of her? Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, there's no reason to be, a lot of people that are fanboys are going to want Radon to win no matter what.
What are you looking at?
And nothing against them, but it's like, it's very clear that the game wants you to believe that, yeah, that's not what happened. Otherwise, Radon would be, you know, the Elden Lord already. Power scaling is meant for anime. Yeah, it's for when you can go, it's over 9,000! This enemy's stronger than the other one, even though, like, it's going to be the same
Dice have
thing.
been cast.
There's no way I'm going to win this now. Yeah.
Bust.
Oh, I should have wasted this, but whatever.
Or maybe I'll take it all.
Now it doesn't matter what happens because, you know, we've already got the points I wanted.
Bending the rules.
Pretty sure the DLC incited that crowd a bit because I know Radon attracted a lot of power scalers. Yeah, again, like I said, it's such a weird thing for me that people are so obsessed with, like, is this character stronger than the other? Like, who cares? They're fictional. Like I said, the writers are going to decide who ultimately wins. It doesn't matter if it's who you think this person would how this imaginary character would do in a matchup. Like, if it says that Patches will beat Artorias, then Patches beats Artorias. He did it somehow, some way. Like, I don't know. Does it make sense? Is it, like, lore accurate? I don't know. I guess that's the lore now. But that's like saying Ronnie couldn't have had Godwin kills because she's not physically powerful as far as we know. Yeah, exactly my point, right? Like, this idea of, like, oh, this character is so much tougher and stuff. Like, the problem with again, and this goes into, like, power scaling in general, right? The problem with any situation is that it's never just two characters in a vacuum. It's, the environment of which they are fighting in, and the circumstances that go behind that. What do they know? Is this like a formal duel where there's like defined rules and stuff? Is this just a free-for-all? Are they doing so? Are they fully aware of each other's abilities, right? Like, there's so many factors that go into that, and again, it becomes this thing where it's like, it's silly. It's ultimately just like what you would headcanon that a character would do in any given situation versus this other character. And yeah, sure, sometimes, like, if it's the Patches or Artorias thing, you'd think, yeah, in a straight-up fight, Patches would probably lose against Artorias 9 times out of 10 at least. But, you know, that 1 time out of 10, you know, Patches might pull some one over the good old hero Artorias, right? And then suddenly he's not looking so heroic. It's kind of funny thinking about the demigods wanting to be Elden Lord. Presumably some of them have their own plans, but the basic standard route is becoming the Lord to their mom. Yeah, I made the joke, right? Like, the joke is ultimately, like, the entire Shattering is essentially a war where all the demigods are vying over who gets to marry their mom. Like, it's just funny in concept, especially with the notorious reputation of Martin with incest and stuff, right? But, like, it's not really that. But it's funny to talk about. Same thing with, like, Moog and Mikla. It's like, it's not really pedophilia, but, you know, it's kind of funny to just talk about Moog as a pedophile. Tori's canonically lost to Goop. Yeah, I suppose so. Ooh, recovered. That's actually really good for us. Oh, I have to have max HP for this to work, but you know what I need? I need abundance, so why not? Oh my god, this is exactly the one I wanted! Oh my god! Every time we recover! Woo! That's gonna be so good. Yeah, we can't. We have to spend money now for that one, so yeah, we can't do that. We go to domain wealth because we like wealth. We like wealth in this house.
Ooh, free stuff.
Nope, that costs stuff. Nope. It's not free. Sorry, Topaz. Ooh, I finally got this. Characters will resist all effects that cause them to be inflicted with crowd control debuffs. Every time they resist a debuff, they will consume HP equal to 20% of their... Oh, that's, Oh, man. Aventurine, can you suddenly become a healer? Obtain 2 random blessings of preservation, enhance 3 blessings. I think I'd rather have 2. Ooh, oh my. Okay, yeah, that was the right choice. Oh, Hamana. Adventure or occurrence? I think occurrence is still better. Oh, statue. Statue is always, You know what? Fuck it. Go back to 1% HP. I really want this one. I really want this one. But I need this one for... Oh, this one's too good to pass up to. Discard a random 3-star blessing. Is there a random 3-star blessing I don't mind losing? I really don't think so. Random 2-star blessing. Obtain 4 random 2-star blessings, sure. Okay. Okay, not the worst. Got me my, my equation expansion. Nicholas boss baby since girl boss doesn't work. Yeah, I see it, Numby. All right, we're going for the increase in numbers here. I don't think. Oh, you know what? This one's not gonna work. Damn, this one's not gonna work. Yeah, this one's bust. This one's bust. Damn. I guess we'll just see how far we can get. After immediately gain 1 blessing of 1 rarity from 3 different paths. Sealing Wax, Annihility, Lotto, Rationalities falls better. Yeah, these are okay. They're like whatever. Cremators. Obtain 2 blessings of Revelation. Discard 1 blessing of 1 star. 2. Obtain 3 random blessings of Remember. Do I want Elation or Remembrance more? Damn. My greatest critique of Elden Ring is that Mesmer, the objectively funniest character to want to be Elden Lord, was forcibly excluded from the Shattering War. Yeah. Mesmer, like I said, Mesmer feels weird. Like, he feels like he exists, because you needed someone to exist in that world, doing the Purge thing. But he feels like he shouldn't be there anymore. Like, it feels like the Purge shouldn't have taken him so long that he would need to stay there, even. Like, what are they still doing with, like, people on, like, pikes and stuff after all this time? Like, the Age of Plenty was a long time ago, man. Even by conservative standards, it's at the very least been decades. Mesmer is Gwendolyn trope of Fire and Stakes instead of Moon. Well, they didn't feel like they needed to, hide him by making him cross-dress, so I feel like, we're not quite at the Gwendolyn level there. Mikola, though, Mikola's kind of, you know, doing double duty there. Bro's really waiting for that call back up. Yeah. I still don't know if I want Remembrance or Elation, and this could really affect my run. We'll go for Remembrance. We get rid of this one because I don't need it with the Elation one. We got back this one that I lost. When freezing dispelled, targets deal 20% less damage. Ooh, that's cool. When a character uses their ultimate, there's a... Ooh, give them icy. Ooh, that's cool. Alright, still 1%. Oh my...
Hey, you. Time to check your books.
Jade, it was nice knowing you. Actually, I think we can keep Jade. But we want to have the doctor here. Where is he? Ratio. There you are. Yeah. I think we want Jade for the AoE. Okay, yeah. God, this is gonna be so awkward, chat. God, I'm not. Wait, what's that last part of the text? This effect can stack up to 2 times less until after the character uses their ultimate. The text, I don't care. The max number of spores increases by 3. Sure, I guess, but that could be good. What's this? Then deal damage for extra 2 times. I mean, extra damage is extra damage. That's more skill points. Damage received, we're lowering damage received though. That's more important because we're not gonna survive otherwise.
Hey, you. Time to check your.
Maybe I should overwrite one blessing if I can. Which one would I want to get rid of? Effect res, sure, we'll keep that. Why not? I might want to wait. looking at my HP right now, you know what? I might want to wait on that one. The other super weird, especially when his Serpent Association goes so unspoken on. It makes Rykard retroactively kind of look like a poser. I assume that a lot of the stuff with Mesmer has to do with the relationship with Rykard's Serpent before Rykard was a thing, right? I feel like Rykard is kind of like the successor to Mesmer in that sense. Yeah, no one likes Rykard anymore. Yeah, they got a new snaky boy that they love so much, right? That's just how it goes, right? It's even weirder when it's clearly Melina and Mesmer are almost surely closest to each other in birth timeline. Yeah, the thing with Melina and Mesmer, like, it's obvious, like, we all can agree, like, Mesmer's sister is obviously Melina, right? Like, it's overwhelmingly obvious. It's like, has a vision of flame, is his sister, like, is someone that has to be, like, you know, that vision which would lead them to being, like, hidden or made secret about, like, Mesmer. It's like, it's obviously Melina / Glowmite Queen. Like, all of it's very clear in that sense.
There's a good chunk.
For the theater of the mediocre.
There we go. Basically, Rykard's a cringe larper. Yeah, essentially, honestly.
Look, a VIP.
SAS. Yep. Knowledge, the measure of truth and falsehood.
I always deliver.
Oh, that is so close.
0 points.
All in.
There we go. Yeah, because of how fast my character is, I think it's better.
Nothing in victory means playing the long game.
Bending the rules.
Cool.
Spend freely.
I like how him using his skill gave him back the skill point he just spent. I find that funny.
Answer me. 0 points.
Both have the same eye closed, both have the seal. Yeah, like there's just so much going into them where it's like, God, like it's so obvious. Like, what are there anyone that honestly, seriously is still gonna argue that Melina isn't the Glowmite Queen at this point? Like, or that or I guess now would be the question, are they gonna argue if she's Mesmer's sister, right? Like it's so obvious. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. That's not good.
Look, a VIP.
SAS. Knowledge.
That's not
measure
good.
of truth
I think
and
that
falsehood.
I think it might be ending it there.
Don't let me down.
Steady.
God, that's so scary.
Freedom.
Watch your head.
0 points.
The faces look similar too, even ignoring the sealed eyes. I don't know about that. Like, I'd have to actually look at the model side by side and stuff, right? That part I'd be like, maybe not. you think Rykard would come back again since the snake is immortal? That seems to be the idea, that he would come back at least in some form. I think it would be less so Rykard, though, and more so just the snake. My interpretation, at least from what I recall from my playthrough, is that Rykard, like, took over the serpent. Like, the serpent was back doing its own thing. It devoured Rykard and was kind of, like, doing, like, you know, it was on its own, so to speak. But Rykard was, like, dormant there, and when we weaken the serpent through our battle, Rykard then takes over and effectively becomes the serpent in,
Opportunity doesn't knock on its own.
Yeah, I know, Aventurine, I get it.
I'm asking questions.
So my understanding, then, is that, like, if Rykard is dead... if, like, say, Tanith, like, devours the serpent, she would theoretically end up becoming the new Rykard / devouring serpent, right? So I feel like it's kind of like that, where the serpent, the serpent will reincarnate with whoever, like, you know, becomes the new devourer, so to speak.
Answer me.
I've seen claims that Melina is actually Mikola or America. Oh, God. The America thing I can kind of understand if it wasn't for all the stuff with the Glowmite Queen, though. Like, in a vacuum, I'm like, you know, I can see that being, like, you know, a piece of, like, America Soul or whatever that's been, like, reincarnated as, like, a younger version of her. I can see that, in theory.
Wanna go nuppy? Time for a lesson.
Oh, I see the exact problem. Ah, wow, I see the exact problem. Jade is eating Topaz's, shield. Oh, God, this is gonna be bad. Just don't hit Topaz. Oh, my. Oh, God. Well.
Application.
Spend freely.
Well. It's nice knowing you all, chat.
Test. 0 points.
I hit the mark.
This is gonna be so
The
awful.
dice have been bust.
So awful for us.
Or maybe I'll take it all.
I think we lose here. I don't think I can use... You know, actually, you know what? I know what I need to do. I need to change my lineup so we don't have Jade. That's the only way I can do this. Sorry, Jade. We can't use you here. I need someone to keep the shields strong. We'll use Sparkle. Oh, you know what? No. Screw... You know what? Screw Sparkle. We need healing. We'll use Wolf.
For the theater of the mediocre.
There we go.
Risk warning.
Yes.
The market is unpredictable. Right! Investing in victory means playing the long game!
Let me do this.
SAS knowledge.
There we go.
The measure of truth and falsehood.
Some people's gonna also claim that Mesmer killed Melina. Ooh!
0 points.
That doesn't really work with the Glowmite Queen angle because of everything we know about Mesmer's, about Mesmer's history versus what we know about the Glowmite Queen. Right? Like, obviously, Malekith has to be the one who murders Melina in that case. But I like that as an idea, right?
Trust me.
I get why people
this
would
is
want
a
to believe that.
guaranteed win.
Test. Feel.
Let the
They do have a
valuation
pretty strong
begin.
presence in the Land of Shadow regardless, though. The Shadowkeep is a whole built structure. Yeah, but I don't know. The thing with Mesmer specifically is it feels weird thinking about Mesmer as a character who is,
The market is unpredictable.
who has, like, dominion over this land.
Playing the long game!
Sure, I'll play
When
along.
the whole, when it seems like everything revolves around them doing their job,
Spend freely.
just, like, you know, purging everybody.
The dice have been
And, like, that should have
cast.
been something that they did in, like, the first few months at most. Like, it should have taken them as long as it seems like
Or
it's
maybe
taking
I'll
them
take it all.
to deal with that. Like, what effective resistance are the Hornsent bringing up at this point? Like, why are there any Hornsent still around at this point? Like, it's a huge
It's on
mystery to
me.
me.
I can do this! You need
It really sort of takes away from me the illusion that these are characters who have so much,
0 points.
that they're any real threat, so to speak, right? Even though they hit like a truck in the actual game.
Watch your head.
Who do I want here?
The dice have been cast.
Yeah,
But
in this.
bust. Or maybe I'll take it all.
There we go.
I'll crush them all. SAS.
Mesmer was born before the Erd Tree, or Melina was born at when the Erd Tree existed.
Knowledge, the measure of truth, and falsehood.
That's an interesting idea, again,
Market is
because
unpredictable.
the problem with Mesmer is he's a demigod. Allegedly, when you kill him, it says, demigod slain. And the problem is that the first demigods were children of Godfrey. So then the question has to become, is that true, but only in the sense that Mesmer only became a demigod after America had children with Godfrey, who became demigods first? How would that work exactly? Like, that's the big question, because the whole idea of the demigods is that they are Marika's spawn, right? Like, they come from her. So, like, if Marika is not God yet, and there is no Erd, or maybe she's God, but there's no Erd tree, theoretically, I suppose. I don't think that's how it would work, but let's just say for the sake of argument. Then there's a huge problem with, okay, how is Melina, how is Marika not just considering him a demigod already? And if the idea is, well, okay, well, Mesmer is like an exception, right? Like, yes, they were, the first demigods were Godfrey's spawn, but, you know, Mesmer was kind of this thing that kind of existed. Or is it that Mesmer is Godfrey's child? But this was born before the Erd tree and stuff. Like, this was before they actually formally had demigods. Does that mean that Marika had red hair then? Does that mean that Radigan existed at that point? Like, there's just so many questions I would have in that situation. Might Marika have been a demigod? No. The whole label of demigod is centered around Marika. Like, demigods are defined by being the children of Marika, right? So, like, when